go. We're recording. Until the end. Something I saw in combat that I later tried to train out of people was the tendency to relax once the primary objective of the mission was complete. I tried to train that out of them because you can't relax until the entire mission is complete. In training, we always attack the platoons hard on their primary objective, but we always attack them even harder after they left the main target. Once the platoons were patrolling back to base, when their minds had already gone home and turned off, that's when we would bring it to them. Hit them from multiple angles with all kinds of mayhem. So they would develop the attitude and the muscle memory to keep going until the end. Even when they got back to base, we would retask them so they had to begin planning again. It wouldn't stop. That's the mentality I wanted to instill in them. It is never finished. You always have more to do. Another mission, another task, another goal. And the enemy is always watching, waiting, looking for that moment of weakness, looking for you to exhale, set your weapon down, and close your eyes, even just for a moment. That's when they attack. So don't be finished. Be starting, be alert, be ready, be attacking, be relentless. Let the enemy stop, let the enemy rest, let the enemy finish. You don't finish, don't stop, don't rest. Not until the enemy is completely destroyed. Even then, turn your focus inward, on yourself, and take the opportunity not to rest, but to make yourself better, faster, smarter, stronger. Because with those goals, nothing is ever finished. Friends, this is the Formless Podcast number. Are we recording? We're not recording. Blooper reel, take one.
Good idea.
Oh my Lord. That was practice.
Do we need to format it?
We do need to format it. Oh my Lord.
Good. That was good. That was good.
Well,
we found it early.
We found it early. At least we didn't go for 40 minutes. That's awesome. I need water.
Did I? Do you have this card and the other one? Or
I have that card.
Just one.
I may have another card.
Okay. I just like to keep track of the card. Yeah, it's like you've been using them forever.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's a $3 card, you're like, where is that card? You know?
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Check, check, check. 1, 2, 3.
Check. Yep, we're good.
Okay, ready? Let's go. Until the end. Something I saw in combat that I later tried to train out of people was the tendency to relax once the primary objective of a mission was complete. I tried to train that out of them because you can't relax until the entire mission is complete. In training, we always attack the platoons hard on their primary objective. But we always attack them even harder after they left the main target. Once the platoons were patrolling back to base when their minds had already gone home and turned off, that's when we would bring it to them. Hit them from multiple angles with all kinds of mayhem. So they would develop the attitude and the muscle memory to keep going until the end. Even when they got back to base, we would retask them so they had to begin planning again. It wouldn't stop. That's the mentality I wanted to instill in them. It is never finished. You always have more to do. Another mission, another task, another goal. And the enemy is always watching, waiting, looking for that moment of weakness, looking for you to exhale, set your weapon down, and close your eyes, even just for a moment. That's when they attack. So don't be finished. Be starting, be alert, be ready, be attacking, be relentless. Let the enemy stop, let the enemy rest, let the enemy finish. You don't finish, don't stop, don't rest. Not until the enemy is completely destroyed. And even then, turn your focus inward, on yourself, and take the opportunity not to rest, but to make yourself smarter, better, faster, stronger. Because even with those goals, nothing is ever finished. Friends, this is episode 41 of the Formless Podcast with Tyler, the superhuman, and me. 51. Dustin. 51. Did I say 50? We did 50 already. We did 50. Holy mackerel. Oh. You know, that little thing that I read there at the beginning, we talk a lot about when you get your black belt, how you're not done. Like everyone thinks that's the pinnacle. That's it. You're done. You rest on your laurels, or you sit on the stool and like watch everyone else. But you keep going. We keep going. We keep training. We find new problems to work out, new solutions to old problems and things. And that has been very fitting lately. You know, day in and day out, it's kind of like the movie Groundhog Day. Like my life in particular has been like Groundhog Day the last year or so.
Wake up, do the
Wake
same
up,
thing
hit the
every
alarm
day.
button, and do the same thing over and over again. And it's funny, our Instagram page for the podcast, my sister who's amazing. She is like, growing up, we used to call her Martha Stewart because she didn't watch cartoons. She watched Martha Stewart's show. She likes to cook.
Okay.
And like she wants to plan all the holiday meals and everything, and it's really awesome. She started a Instagram page for her. I'm going to butcher this. Charcuterie boards. Charcuterie. Yeah, that thing where you put all the stuff on it and like
different meats,
and cheeses and nuts and fruits and stuff. She's done weddings for people. She's really talented. Anyway, she started an Instagram page. And it blew up. It got like really famous.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, like I want to say she had like 2,000 or 3,000 followers in a matter of weeks.
Wow.
And she kind of got scared and quit doing it. But she had like done a couple of Christmas parties for some doctors in town, and she did a wedding and was like really blowing up. But she doesn't have a commercial kitchen. She didn't have any kind of like licensing or permits to do that stuff. So she kind of got scared and she backed off.
Oh no.
Yeah. But anyway, I was talking to her about it the other day and like, hey, how did you do that? Because like our page has like a couple of hundred followers and it hasn't really grown. It's been pretty stagnant. And she's like, well, you post the same thing every day. It's a picture of your clock when you wake up. And she's like, that's boring. And I go, yeah, that's kind of the idea though. Like I put other stuff on there, and since then I've started to put other stuff on there, but she was like kind of ridiculing me of it, you know? And I'm like, well, it's twofold. One, yes, it's the same thing every day, almost every single day. It's a picture of my clock at 4:00 in the morning. But I'm working towards something.
Yeah.
You know, I'm working towards something, and that grind, that doing the same thing over and over again is part of that something, part of that journey, part of that, you know, that row to hope. You know what I mean? Like that's what it takes. And
the grind
over and over again. And like when you're training, you know, when you first start training, and almost everyone who gets excited about training, when they walk in the door, they're like, I'm going to work towards that black belt. I'm going to get that black belt. I mean, I've heard that hundreds of times, if not thousands of times by now. And the amount of people that actually go through it is few and far between because it is a grind and it's hard to do. And you don't know what's going to happen next week, next month, let alone tomorrow. You know, all sorts of problems pop up along the way. And yeah, my wife is a really perfect example of this because she tells me at least once a week that she's quitting.
No way.
Once a week,
Karate
every other week,
or...
she's quitting martial arts.
Really?
It's too much. She can't handle it. And then she does. And then she does. And she does. And she keeps going. And like I used to stress out over it. And used to argue with her and used to like, no, you got to keep going and try and motivate her. She's in that middle of it and she's struggling, but she keeps finding, it's really inspiring because she keeps finding a way to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And now she realizes that like, it's good for her.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's good. and I'm just going to keep. And the struggle is just one more obstacle, and it's like I'm not going to let that stop me now. You know, it's just like, oh, okay, well, I'll deal with this as it comes. I'll deal with it later. I'll deal with it, or I'll fix this now so I can go do the martial arts thing. And it's really funny. We had a talk just a couple of days ago, actually, where she was like, "Put the kids back in school. I'm quitting school. I'm gonna just go get a job, and we're just gonna, figure it out." Blah blah blah, and like kind of had her melt down.
Oh no.
Yeah, and I when I'm ready for it, I just let her go, let her blow off that steam, because that's what I realize. That's what it is now. She's just releasing all of the inner stress and struggle or whatnot. So she gets it out, and then she's fine. So had this a couple of days ago. She's just telling me all of this stuff. I'm gonna put the kids back in school. I'm not gonna homeschool them anymore. I'm gonna quit school. She's got this teacher that's just a pain, and she blew off all of this steam, let it go. And then yesterday, I'm sitting in front of the computer. I was doing a couple of things, and I see her walking to go out the front door because our computer's like literally right by the front door. And she's got her arnie sticks in her hand and her headphones in. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go practice."
That's cool.
I just went, "Okay." Like, all right, you go for it.
It's funny how that type of stuff, one moment we're like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm like throwing in the towel and all
Yeah.
that.
Well, your enthusiasm wanes.
Yep.
I am guilty of this as anybody. Like I think I'm probably more so guilty of it because I'll get excited about something. Somebody will reach out to me on Instagram, or somebody will say something positive about the podcast. Like, "Hey, listen to the last episode. It was pretty good," or "I like it. See what you're doing." Blah blah blah. And I'll be on cloud 9 for a month.
Mm-hmm.
And then nobody will say something for a few days, and I'll be all like, "Why am I doing this? Am I barking up the wrong tree?"
Yeah.
And I think it's a human nature. Like, we're all a little unsure of that next step. We get so far, and we're like, "Oh, what? I don't know. I don't know what I should do here," and we're all a little timid sometimes. I've always been like, I've always admired people who've had a mission. Like, "Oh, I'm going to be a nurse, or I'm going to be a police officer," or, and they've just known that's what they want to do. Because I've never really had that like kind of aspiration. I've never thought like, "Oh, I want to be a whatever one day." I've thought about it. I've said it. I've even claimed that I wanted to do stuff, but like never worked towards it. Like I don't know. I like having the option of doing whatever. Mm-hmm. I like being wide open and going, I'll dabble with this for a little bit.
Yeah.
One difference, like, I've always wanted to have a black belt. I've always wanted to get that. But I didn't really understand what that took. But this was something like training has always makes me feel better, and always something I wanted to do. And when I can't do it for whatever reason, it bumps me out.
Mm-hmm.
So the more I get to do that, like, the happier I am. And I just keep pushing that button, right? I just, oh yeah, that works. So I just keep pushing that button. But I haven't found anything else like that does that for me. And I wonder, like people that have those kinds of goals, is that society's pressure, or is that something that they're just like, "Oh, this is what I want," and this pushes that button for me?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
You're saying because you reached if I'm hearing that correctly, it's that you hit the point of like exhaustion or something. Is that what I'm hearing? Like in an area, and then to push past that and find
twofold. Like the people that like say, "Hey, I want to be a black belt." Yeah. I think they see that initial excitement of walking into the gym or the dojo or whatever, and they get super pumped up.
Yeah.
Because it's an inspiring place. It's a place where you get to work out. It's a place where, like, you basically beat the stress out of yourself.
You get
You know,
new knowledge, new skills.
Yeah, you're learning. It's a fun environment. It's a great place to be. There's people that are positive there, and they're all working towards a common goal. So I think that they see that and they get super pumped up and they're super excited. But then they realize that there's a grind involved. And then outside influences in life screw with that. And it makes people hit the pause button or the stop button completely. So there's that. But the other thing, like having a set point, a fixed point, and working towards that fixed point, other than having a black belt, I've never really had that. And I wonder if for most people, if that fixed point is like having the goal of becoming a lawyer or a doctor or a cop or whatever. Is that fixed point their black belt? Or is that society's like, hey, this is what you should have, something that you're working towards?
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I never really had anything like that for me that lit a fire for me. That was like, oh, this is where I'm going.
Huh.
I've always been just like, oh wow, that's a shiny thing. Oh wait, here's another shiny thing. And I just back to, just pell mell, just wherever. I've had a bunch of different jobs in my life and a bunch of different things that I've done and interests for a little while, but nothing like concrete, nothing like this is what I'm doing.
Like you never really felt like you've had like a calling to
other than the martial arts thing for me has hit that button for me, and that I don't know, I'm just gonna keep going for that, and that's what I'm doing. And I have my black belt, and my wife was like, "So are you done? Are you gonna quit?" I'm like, "No, I'm not quitting.
It's only the beginning."
It's like, I'm gonna keep going, and I'm gonna probably try out something new too, and continue to do this. I love doing this. This works. So that's my goal. That's what I'm focused on. I want to get better. I want to be faster and stronger and smarter and all of those things. I want to continue to learn. But I don't know. It's just a weird thought that I had this morning when I woke up. I wonder.
Like you've always felt like, that's interesting. Like you felt as if you haven't had whereas your friend maybe when they were a kid they were like, I want to be a veterinarian. And they grew up and they become a veterinarian because they followed that.
Yeah, one of my best friends growing up, and I still talk to him to this day. He's my best friend. He lives in Sacramento. He's a sheriff, and that's all he wanted to do was be a police officer. That's all he's ever wanted. He got out of high school, went to Sacramento State, and started to be the process of becoming an engineer, like taking all these classes, all these math classes and statistics and all this stuff. And he wasn't happy. And he called me one day and he's like, I'm not dropping out and changing my major. And I'm like, oh yeah, what's going to be? He's like, law enforcement. And I'm like, well, that's what it should have been to begin with, He's like, yeah, I know, but I want to make money. I want to do this and da 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 da. I'm like, well, you'll make money being a police officer and you'll be a lot happier. So, but that's what he's done, and he's super happy. But I've never had that kind of a thing that I've like, oh, this is what I want to do with my life. I've just lived my life
until you got to now being a black belt.
Well, yeah, that was a goal, but that was like I didn't think of it as a career.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was never thought of a career. I just figured I'd work and have fun when I could, and do different things. And martial arts has always been an interest, and so when I got back into it, I was no intention of quitting as long as I have the means and then the way to make that happen.
I think that's a good place to be, is to be not because now your options are like, oh, they're wide open, because whereas somebody that's like, oh, I've always wanted to do this, like that's great for that.
Yeah.
That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. And that person probably didn't have the option to like think like they've always thought, oh, I'm going to be that veterinarian, right?
Yeah,
That's what I'm going to
yeah.
grow up. And they've never deviated from that path. The flip side of that is like, well, but they didn't, there's a lot more to experience. And a lot of people don't, that's not an interest, is to deviate from that path. So because you didn't have that, maybe that's like oh, you're even more free, to like test and dabble here and dabble there. And people are dabblers, right? We dabble in different things. We kind of have a hard time committing, but if we can get past that, the dabbling. So
that's wild.
But I think that's a good place to be,
Well, it's a hell of an adventure so far.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's been some struggle, but there's always a little struggle.
There's gotta be, or it ain't a story.
No, that's for sure. It makes for a damn good
As
story.
you get closer to the end of the story, it's got to get tougher. It's got to get
yeah. And it's funny. That was something else that I had talked about with my wife. She's going to school and she's doing really well, but it's a struggle. And I'm like, life has a funny way of testing you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you find something that you want, and life seems to want to throw a little roadblock in there once in a while. I'm like, okay, instead of looking at it as a roadblock, look at it as a question. And look at it as like, how bad do I want this? Like, do I want this bad enough to like literally run into this roadblock or go through the fire, proverbially speaking? I can't talk.
Proverbially speaking.
Like, is it enough? Do you want this thing bad enough to get burned a couple of times or many times, because that one little roadblock, if it's enough to stop you, did you really want to go through all of that?
And imagine the roadblocks down the road.
Exactly.
They only get bigger.
And they're always there. You can sit on the couch and not do anything, and you're gonna have those problems. You're gonna have some problems. So you might as well have problems working towards the goal
rather than
something that you don't want to do. But yeah. It's an adventure. So look at it like that. I don't know. It seems a lot more positive to look at it like that than as oh no, another problem, another roadblock, another struggle. Life is struggle, right? Like, keep on working.
Keep on working.
Keep on trucking.
And the question is, that there's a really good movie I just watched in the last couple months. It's from like the 70s, I think, and it's called Sorcerer, and it has the guy from Jaws, Roy Scheider, the actor Roy Scheider.
Oh yeah.
From Jaws. Fantastic film. But in this film, these characters are tasked with driving. I don't want to ruin the plot of the film, which it's a great plot, by the way. But they're tasked from driving this thing from point A to point B. It's a very simple movie plot, and it's dangerous, obviously. But at one point in the film, they come across a roadblock across their path, and they get all, oh man, what are we gonna do? And then they come up with like an initial plan, and then they try that out, and it doesn't work. But they've got this. It's essentially a big tree that's in their path, but and then they're at the point of giving up, and just saying, oh, this roadblock in front of us is just too much. We gotta go. We got to turn around. But there's nowhere, if they turned around, there was nowhere else to go back and then loop around to their destination in time. You know what I'm saying? Like take a detour.
Yeah.
They didn't have enough time. So anyways, they figure out a solution. It's the most simple solution for the roadblock. I don't want to ruin the movie, but it's and they end up coming up with a solution for the roadblock. And that's funny how we hit those roadblocks, in our lives. And it's like, oh, what are we going to do? Are we going to sit there and like, wham, we hit this roadblock and then sit down and be like, pity ourselves or get not, or maybe not pity ourselves, but just be like, I can't overcome this roadblock, or talk ourselves down. But yeah, they only get bigger and bigger, and that's the point where we talk. It was somebody else I was talking with. We were talking recently, and you and I have talked about this before, and it's like, make those if you don't have the metal to like get past those initial roadblocks, they're just, if a person doesn't have the metal to get past them, I mean, they only get bigger down the road.
Yeah.
You gotta figure out
it's funny
how to get around them.
You've seen the movie Alien?
Yeah.
Bill Paxton?
Yep. No, that's Aliens.
Aliens, okay, yeah, Aliens. That point where he's like, oh man, we're gonna die, this is it, but what's he do? He goes. He goes and fights the aliens, right?
He pushes on.
Yeah, but like he has to like get all of that out of his system first. Like, it's it. This is it, man. We're gone.
The freak out, the meltdown.
Yeah, and
you have to.
And some people do. Like I do that a lot.
Oh, me too.
And then I do it, and it's like, okay. But and others don't. Like, everybody's a little bit different that way. Some people have to have their little freak out and then they go on. Or some people like, oh, that's it, I quit, and then they continue. Yeah, it's weird makeup there.
Well, and if you that makes a good story. Like if a character is just like
totally stoic
and just comes to a roadblock and has the answer immediately how to get around the roadblock. I don't know about you, or anybody else listening to this, but I don't think I would identify with that character. In the story, they have to come to the roadblock and be like, like we simultaneously want to know the answer to the problem and then go around it, but I also acknowledge that you have to like have that freak out, that stop, that urge, and like up. Left, right, straight, up, down, back. Where
do we go from here?
Yeah. And I think that you come to those roadblocks, and I mean, my gosh, those roadblocks in a way, they're almost like custom tailored for us. Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah. They gotta test your metal.
They test your metal, but they're custom tailored. Like somehow those problems are custom tailored just for you or I or whoever to come over to overcome those problems. It's weird. It's like, it's cool. Yeah. I experienced that a lot in my life with like filmmaking. You're like, okay, like, am I gonna stop here and sit here and cry and whine and be like, I don't know what to do, or are we gonna like make a decision, like figure out how to get around this roadblock?
Yeah. Yeah, wow.
So, but yeah, those roadblocks, they are custom tailored for us. I don't think about the next time you come across the roadblock, like I do, or anyone listening, like this roadblock, it's for you, like to become a better person.
That's a great perspective, though. That's a great way to look at it, as opposed to being like, oh, this problem, I can't deal with it, and it's too hard, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, this is mine. This is my issue to deal with. This is my problem to solve.
Yeah.
That's a cool way of looking at it. I haven't thought of it.
It's custom tailored. I mean, even from good storytelling, whether it's a story, a poem, a movie, video game, good storytelling. It's like the hero or the heroine, the female hero, or the hero, the male hero. They those roadblocks. What makes a good story is those roadblocks are custom tailored. It's almost like the hero or the heroine is an afterthought for just this problem happens, and it's like, oh, let's bring in the hero to solve it. It's almost like the problem can be the star of the story, and it's like, bring in the hero to solve this problem, which it's custom tailored for the hero to solve for everyone else. And that makes a really good, well-rounded person. So every single time that I hear of people with roadblocks, including myself, I'm like, oh, that's custom tailored by life for this individual.
That's interesting. It's kind of like the reverse of that too. Like, you know, you don't know what somebody's gone through until you walk the mile in their shoes. Right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I look at people sometimes and go, oh man, if I had their life, that would be, I don't know how I would be able to deal with that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how I'd deal with their issues. But on the flip side, could they deal with mine?
Right.
You know,
right.
Yeah. Huh.
It's everything's custom tailored in a way, kind of.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
That's cool.
But what do you all think? Do you think our
yeah.
Our roadblocks are custom tailored for us?
I think so.
Or
I think that's a really, I've never thought of it like that. That's a cool way to put it.
And they're almost like an instant filter. Like, there's only 3 things that could really happen: is you come to a roadblock and you just hang out right there at the roadblock forever, or you turn around and go home, or you figure out a way to get through it. There's only 3 options.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's really cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah, and I think, man, I've known a lot of people that they've come to those roadblocks in their lives, and they're on a path and they want to do something. So they're going down this path, they hit the roadblock, and for whatever reason, those people turn around and go home. And you're like, man, that's sad. Like, maybe they wanted to do that, right?
Yeah.
They hit that roadblock and they were like, hey, this journey's not for me, this path's not for me, and they turn around and go home. But all they had to do was take a few steps to the left or right and go around it, or whatever. Like,
grab a ladder and climb over it.
Grab a ladder, or in that movie Sorcerer, you see what they do to get that roadblock out. They're like, we're gonna get this out real quick. And so and it's how do you get around? And man, I think that's not the life I want to live. Like, you hit those roadblocks and it's like, oh, throw in the towel, go home, or, well, we're just going to set up camp right in front of this roadblock and complain how there's a roadblock right here. Like,
Yeah.
I guess there's even a fourth person I thought about. And you know what I think the fourth person is? And this is the worst one to be, in my opinion. The person who never starts the journey but looks down and says, oh, I can see the roadblocks, I'm just not going to go down that path. That.
Yeah. You got to start.
You got to start. And
wow.
I've known a lot of people that have they have these hopes and dreams, and they talk about what they want to do. You know, you do too. Mm-hmm. We all do. They got these hopes and dreams, and they want to do them, and then they're like, oh, but I knew someone else that went down this path of starting a business or starting a degree, and then when they hit at this point, they had to figure out how to get more money, and they couldn't figure it out to keep their business afloat, so they had to fold up shop. So I can see down that path, and that's where it's going to go. And it's like, well, yeah, that was the other person's path. You don't know what would have happened
for you. Yeah.
And just to get halfway down and then give up, I mean, that's not a way to do it. Because then it's like when you come to a roadblock and you either give up or it's unsurmountable, then the next roadblock you come to on another path, it's easier to be like, oh, well, this is insurmountable. Throw in the towel, turn around and go. Then you just become a person that walks a half a mile out of your village in every direction, hits a roadblock, and is like, oh, I'm going to go home. Not a way to live life.
Yeah.
I think, and if you notice in every storytelling from the beginning of time, storytelling is all about the hero or the heroine that gets on the path, and the resistance just gets greater, right? Like, you look at any movie, it's like they start on their journey, and just the resistance is a little bit, but then as that resistance is a little bit at their beginning of their journey, that's what desensitizes them. I think that's the right word. for then the resistance as it gets greater and greater and greater,
Yeah.
So,
Wow. Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, Star Wars, right? Like Luke Skywalker at the beginning of A New Hope, the first Star Wars movie, he's just trying to figure out a way to get off his home planet, like in any direction, right?
Yeah.
With Obi-Wan, and they want to get in the Falcon with Han Solo and Chewie, but it's just that little bit of resistance. By the end of the third film, Return of the Jedi, he has battled his father on the Death Star as it's going to blow up a planet. Like the beginning of his journey, there wasn't a lot of risks and things that could happen. But by the end,
that problem at the end, where the whole thing's gonna blow up, versus like just leaving home,
just trying to catch a ticket out of town,
Yeah.
And then but it's like we've got to have those on that journey, have that little bit of resistance. Okay, pal, we get your little bit of resistance early on, and then it all builds to the finale. And then that's in storytelling like that. When was the last time we ever heard a story of where everything went right with the hero?
Exactly. Yeah. Nothing.
The hero's like, I've got to set off and kill the evil king. That's the king of this realm, and he leaves, the village he's in, and then he's walking along his path, and it's just a straight path to the the evil king's castle, and people are handing him food and clothes, and here's a nice sharp sword on the way.
Here's some money.
Here's some
clothes.
And he just walks right up.
Let me carry you there.
Walks right up to the castle doors and, hey, I'm here to face you, bad guy. And then and the guy's like, oh, you know what? I'll just lay down right in front of you and admit defeat.
That's awesome. That doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen.
No, that would make for a crap story.
It would make for a crap story. You've got to have resistance, and as much as we hate resistance, it's like curling a weight in the gym, right? You gotta have that resistance is what builds the muscle.
That's awesome. That is really cool. I like that a lot.
I know you know this. I'm saying this.
But I haven't thought of it like that, and that's a good way of thinking about it.
Yeah, it's like when I'm writing a script or writing a story or coming up with an idea for a movie, and you always think about the hero or the heroine, that you've got to it's almost like the story. It's tailored for the hero to overcome these obstacles, to face their personal challenges. I think martial arts does that too.
Absolutely. It has a way of making you see the problem from a different angle.
Yep.
And it takes some of the teeth out of it.
Oh yeah.
It takes away some of those fears, for sure. It's a way to, I always tell people it's a way to take your real life problems, the problems you face outside of class, and turning down the volume or shining a light on them. And like, you can forget about it for 45 minutes or an hour, depending on how long class is. And then you can go back to it and you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Like that. Yeah. It's really not like this, like the way I was fearing or the thing I was thinking about or whatever. That confrontation with my boss isn't as bad as I was thinking. A lot of it was upstairs here in my head. When in reality, I just needed to face facts and be like, hey, well, this is what happened. Whatever the case may be. It gives you a break. And like, okay, I'm not going to focus on this thing that's giving me issues right now. I'm going to focus on something else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what it does for me.
That's what it does for you. Yeah.
I need to go punch stuff for a little bit and not worry about life. I just need to go focus on punching this bag or trying to hit Tyler or whatever the case may be, or not get hit by Tyler. And then I can come back to this problem and think about it in a whole new light,
Yeah, and I think, and I've seen it with you, like when you, especially recently in the last 6 months, it's like when you're out there working the bag, and then we go into class, and you were like, you'll be before class maybe working a bag or after class, and then you come back when we go to class and then we work. It's almost like you said, oh, I want to work the bag and just focus on this area, my punch, whatever. But man, in class, like it shows, like when you really put that effort into that bag and put it on the bag, like it shows. I'm like, whoa, Dustin's been practicing. Like,
well, yeah, I like to think of class as like one of two things. Like it's a pause button on life.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is my escape. This is what I'm doing to like get rid of the stress, get rid of what's going on upstairs. Like clear that out, because I can't focus on what I'm doing if I'm thinking about the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing too is like I look at like okay, hitting focus minutes or hitting the bag or sparring. I look at that as like, okay, this is the time to get all of the frustration, all of life's frustrations out. Because you do something physical, like I can release some of that stress. Like and every time I throw a punch or kick or get punched or kicked, I'm letting go of that all of that stuff that I've got stressed, that all of that hanging on me kind of just gets knocked away.
That's a good point. Yeah. You're like throwing the energy out there, like punch head.
Yeah, it's just kind of cleansing that off, like just knocking some of that out of the way.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's good. It's like a pause on life, or a pause on your day.
Yeah. It's a break point, like because you really can't go into class thinking about that stuff. Sometimes it's hard. But like if you're thinking about that other stuff when you should be focusing on, like when we're sparring. If we're sparring and I'm thinking about like bills or work or I'm not gonna have a very good sparring time.
You are gonna be found out real quick. You gotta be present.
Well, and even if it does, you take one shot and you're like, oh, now I'm in present. Now I'm present. Now I gotta focus on this. Here's the immediate danger,
I gotta keep my hands up.
Yeah.
That's good.
I like that. That's good stuff to think about. I'm just writing down something so I don't forget it real quick. And then, how is the movie coming along, by the way?
The movie's doing good. We're finishing up music and special effects, and we're gonna. I'm still trying to work a distribution deal for it. So I'm talking to different distributors and see who's interested in getting the rights to the film for like a year or 2 years to put it on all these different platforms. We've got we made the movie, and then to get the movie on Netflix or Amazon, you got to have a middleman between us and them, unless you know somebody directly at the company.
Gotcha.
You have a middleman, like a distribution company, and so they'll get it on those platforms. And so that's just something we're working on right now, is finishing up the film, but also figuring out where we're gonna put the film out and get it into.
So like you can kind of see the finish line.
Yeah, I can see the
finish line. But it's still a ways out.
It's still a ways out, but I can see the finish line. And if we're talking, obstacles with that, I've had so many obstacles recently, and I can almost see more obstacles down the road. And I'm like, oh, I'm already preparing for those obstacles. Like, how are we going to get around those?
Yeah.
Or to go through them or whatever. But that remains to be seen. I'm sure I'll be talking about those obstacles and how I get past them. But but the nice thing is what I'm seeing is, rather than being like, oh, we made this movie and then we put it out and then we enjoy the success of the film being out, and then it's like, okay, now we start on the second one. Now is when I'm starting on the second one and the third one, the next couple movies that I'm planning. So it's not like, oh, we ran out of food in the pantry, time to go shopping. No, when your food starts getting low in the pantry, you go shopping.
Yeah.
So you're constantly replenishing.
Yeah. So you got to keep that fire lit.
Keep that going. Fire lit, and so that's what I'm doing. So I'm looking for my next scripts and my next stories. So if anybody out there has any movie scripts or movie ideas, email us your movie ideas or your stories or any good stories for obstacles that you overcame in your life.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
Right. I like to hear about other people's obstacles.
Well, even though, like you were saying earlier, problems are custom tailored to each individual, we're all here together. We're all here together, whether we like it or not. So you might as well be kind.
Yeah.
Right? Because everyone's fighting a battle. Oh, yeah. Man. I listened to. I was having a pretty down week this week, and I listen to podcasts almost exclusively when I'm at work because I do a lot of driving, and I listened to Jocko podcast number 200. I'm chronologically going through them, and he's got like 400 and something episodes, and I'm at 200. And he releases one every week, so I'll never catch up. But 200. He had an interview with a guy who was a Vietnam vet, and he wrote a book. And it was actually pretty ho-hum. It wasn't like anything super extravagant. The conversation, the interview was fairly ho-hum, nothing super exciting to write home about. Until he got to his injury. So he originally signed up. He didn't get drafted. He enlisted. And he was going to be a mechanic, work on heavy equipment. And he was a Marine, and he got through boot camp, and he was going to get his assignment, and he was assigned to go to Vietnam. And he gets to his destination, this camp, and he's like, hey, I'm your, heavy equipment mechanic or operator or whatever. I can't remember the exact term he used. And he's like, the guy in charge goes, that's great. As you can see here, we don't have any heavy equipment, so you're going to be a rifleman. And if something breaks down, you'll be the guy that fixes it. So here's your rifle, go stand over there. And he ended up doing he was there 8 or 9 months and did a whole bunch of different jobs and did a whole bunch of different reconnaissance missions and all sorts of different stuff. He ends up stepping on a landmine.
Oh, man.
This landmine didn't have shrapnel in it. It just had high explosive. There was no metal fragments. It literally burned off his legs and one of his arms. It was terrible, right? And he went home. He started a roofing company. And he's like, I didn't climb on the roofs. I can't. But he started a company and hired employees and stuff, and did all this different stuff. He got a real estate license. He bought homes. He sold homes. He did all sorts of different stuff. But the main subject, the main idea that I think the story was about was he had a major setback, and what he chose to do with it versus he could have just sat at home and cried about how he doesn't have legs and he's missing an arm and poor pitiful me, which by all means, holy crap, that would be your ticket to be poor pitiful me. Here you go. No hard feelings. You got all my permission. But he didn't do that, and he was like, okay, I can't do this, I can't do that, what can I do? And that outlook was first of all, for me personally, it was oh, you got nothing to bitch about. Like, quit crying. I don't care how hard your life is. Like, I didn't step on a landmine. Literally, the medic, the corpsman that got to him first goes, I'm not even going to put a tourniquet on you. It burned. Like, he wasn't bleeding. He didn't bleed out. Like, I guess landmine stuff, I'm out of my element here, but landmine stuff, like when they blow up, like if survivors, the big concern is like bleeding out.
Yeah.
Because you cut arteries and things like that. And like this guy didn't have that problem at all. It literally cauterized.
Whatever the explosive is.
Yeah. It just was so high temp, it just burned everything off, which is terrible. Like, ugh. Can't imagine. So like
he had every right.
He had in my book, he had every right to be like, oh, I'm good. I'm just gonna sit over here and like poor pitiful me, you know what I mean? Like, but he didn't. He looked at it and was like, okay, I've got all these issues, but what can I do? Instead of looking at like all of my problems, he was like, what can I do? What can I do with what I've got? And like that outlook, for first of all, it changed, like my whole attitude changed. It was like, I got nothing to cry about. Like, no problems. Quit crying. Like, quit kicking the dirt. Like, come on. And I need that periodically in my life. Like, quit your bitching. Just go.
Just go.
Just do something.
Oh man.
And that was really inspiring. Because I've had issues, but I've never like had that kind of an issue. You know what I mean?
You're like, oh
wow. So that, and I think that kind of ties into what we've been talking about. Like, it made me look at problems in a whole different perspective. Because like, I don't got problems. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have problems like that.
What is my one of my friends? He always says, it's not a problem, it's an opportunity to overcome. That's what he said.
Yeah.
They're not problems, they're opportunities to overcome.
Yep. My favorite movie quote recently is from Pirates of the Caribbean. Jack Sparrow's like getting told like all the problems. I can't remember which one it is. It might be the first movie, but this guy's like telling him all these problems. The ship's, a wreck, and there's no sail, and there's just no food, there's no money, and there's all this stuff. And he just keeps going on and on and on and on. And Captain Jack turns to him and says, "The problem's not the problem. The problem is your attitude about the problem."
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. I don't remember what movie it's from. It's one of the pirate movies, but I just love that quote because you're like, yeah, okay. It's not the problem. It's me and my attitude about the problem.
Opportunities to overcome.
That's right. I think we're about tapped out. We did 50 minutes or so. Friends, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. We have a website, which we told you about on the last podcast. All of our contact information is there. Our email address, our Facebook page, our Instagram, and our X or Twitter, however you prefer to say that, is on there. Keep looking, keep checking back, because we do have some stuff that we are going to be putting up eventually. Hopefully soon. We'll have some more info about how you can contact us, or maybe buy some merch or something like that to support us, so we can support each other, and keep trucking. Awesome. Thanks, friends.
Thank you.
Ooh, we were dying on the battery.
Oh man,
that was close.